right, going further in the notes that were taken by law enforcement contemporaneous with this meeting, the Chief Interrogation Control Person, Mr. Becker, videotapes are subject to too much scrutiny in court. We don't want the LEA people, law enforcement authority people, in aggressive sessions anyway. Lieutenant Colonel Beaver, law enforcement authority choose not to participate in these type of choice not to participate in these type of interrogations is more ethical and moral as opposed to legal. And then this line from Mr. Fredman: the videotaping of even totally legal techniques will look ugly. Now, that phrase is particularly troubling to me because inherent is that phrase that videotaping even the totally legal ones would look bad. For God's sakes, let's don't tape the ones that are illegal.
For people who have never participated in a police interrogation, I would just say that it would make anyone uncomfortable. And so without a context, without understanding the situation, I'm not trying to be in Mr. Fredman's mind. I'm saying I understand probably what he is saying is that even when you have a legal police custodial interrogation, that people can be uncomfortable. I would just say videotaping is not necessary unless your military intelligence people need it for whatever purpose, because we had closed circuit TVs where the people could watch the interrogations 24/7, and so it wasn't necessary to videotape unless there was an intelligence purpose. So my only point is that even when, yes, I mean, again, if you've never witnessed a police interrogation for hours and hours, when you're interviewing a suspect, it can be very uncomfortable.
Well, I will tell you, Lieutenant Colonel Beaver, I have witnessed.
Well, I'm not saying you personally.
I must object to this line of questioning, ma'am, with all due respect, Senator.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me. Yes. Can you, first of all, identify yourself?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm Lieutenant Colonel James Friend. I'm the defense counsel for Lieutenant Colonel retired Beaver. My objection, sir, if I may.
Can you speak up? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If you're, can you consult with your client there, and then either you or her speak into the microphone, one or the other? You want to speak into the mic?
I would like to object to my client being asked about what someone else said and the inferences it's attributed to her. I think that's an unfair question.
All right. Let me just...
I'll be happy to straighten the record out.
Your objection is noted. Okay.
Yeah, I was asking you, Lieutenant Colonel Beaver, if these things were said in front of you in your capacity as the staff judge advocate, if you recall, these were notes taken by Criminal Investigative Task Force within DOD, contemporaneous with this meeting, attributing some statements to you and some statements to Mr. Fredman. I was asking, do you recall those statements being made? I was not saying, I think I was very clear that Mr. Fredman said this, not Lieutenant Colonel Beaver. Do you recall those statements being made in front of you in your capacity as the judge advocate, staff judge advocate at Guantanamo Bay?
Ma'am, the meeting was for non-attribution purposes so that people could speak their minds and that opinions not be held against someone in an adverse way. It was a brainstorming session. People spoke up and had different opinions. I don't recall what was said 6 years ago, but the purpose of the session was to allow people to speak freely and address their concerns, whether it be the law enforcement community, the intel community, the lawyers, the military police, and so that we would get a genuine discussion of the issues. And so if you you restrict what can be said, then you're going to have people doing things perhaps in darkness, and you won't know about it. So I wanted people to have a good collegial discussion, and as I recall, we had a good collegial discussion, but I cannot recall precisely what was said by a particular person or whether, law enforcement, and the law enforcement people were particularly hostile towards me and were very unhappy with me that I was even having these conversations. But I still thought it was best to do it in the light of day and include everyone than to just limit it to military intelligence personnel. But I'm sorry, I cannot recall with any certainty what was said 6 years ago.